Hello.
Hi.
Hold on, let me shut this door. How is everyone doing today? Thank you for being patient with me. Let's see.
It's okay.
I was on another call before this, and something happened with my Zoom. I don't know what was going on with it. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Claudia. Hi, Luz. Hi, is that Miss Aguilar? Hold on, I can't. Yes. And then I have
Hi.
Unsado. I know I'm saying that wrong.
I'm Roxana.
Roxana, how are you, Roxana?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing well. Let's see. Can I get these headphones to work? All right, we are going to go ahead and get started tonight. I don't want to keep you long. I know it is weird for us to have class on a Monday night. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. So let me get my screen ready. Let's share my sound. So tonight we are reading chapters 9 and 10. And let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 9, Modulation. I sleep until 10 on Sunday morning. And when I go upstairs to the kitchen, Robert's already there reading the Times. And then he makes breakfast for both of us, scrambled eggs and toast. So what should we do today, he says. I mean, besides practicing? Want to go out for a while? I shrug. It looks like a decent day. I'd be happy with a walk along the Hudson or something. Or do you want to be a real tourist? Statue of Liberty? Empire State Building? Something like that? He shakes his head. Okay, so where we are in the story, if you didn't join us last week, I will share the link. I realized I did not upload it to YouTube. I will share the link. So Robert has been staying with Gwen, okay? So remember, Gwen has told Robert about her grandfather being missing or that he left. So Robert is staying with Gwen to help her deal with her uncle, as well as dealing with practicing as she prepares for her music auditions. If you remember, why is Gwen auditioning? And when we say auditioning, she is going to have to play her violin in front of a small number of people. Why are these auditions so important? Does anyone know? What is she trying to get into? Can anyone remember? We know she's in high school. Where is she trying to go? Where is Gwen trying to go? Would anyone like to try and take a guess? Why is Gwen having to audition with her violin? Miss Luz?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. Remember, she's trying to go to college. So she wants to go to music school or a college that specializes in classical music. Okay. So in order for her to get into these schools and to get a scholarship because she doesn't have the money to pay for the school, she has to audition. Okay. So these auditions are very important. So Robert has been staying there with her. They
It's
both
like Beck.
say it again, Miss Luce.
No, no
Okay.
sabía cómo se dice beca, pero I don't know.
Okay. It's okay. So she's trying to audition for the local to several colleges that she would like to get into. These colleges are very prestigious. And when we say prestigious, they are very well-known, expensive colleges. Okay. So she is hoping to get some type of scholarship to pay for college. So she has to do well in these auditions. Okay. So also, we learned from the last few chapters that Robert has a special talent. Does anyone remember Robert's talent? I showed a video clip. Let me see if I can pull it up. I showed a video clip in our last session about what Robert can do with his voice. Let's see if I can move this screen over. There we go. Does anyone remember what Robert can do with his voice?
Yeah, the is made the boss the grandpa the Wayne.
Uh-huh. So Robert can impersonate or pretend that he is Gwen's grandfather. Okay. So he can change his voice to sound like Gwen's grandfather. Okay. And I'll show you a video clip of what I mean by impersonating. So I have a video clip, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I have a video clip of, who is this? George Lopez pretending to be the actor from Scarface. Hold on, it wants me to click all the way through this, and I don't want to do that. I just want to present. Okay, here we go. All right. So here's a video clip of George Lopez pretending to be Scarface. So this is what we mean by an impersonation.
Hey babe, how'd you sleep?
Ah, crazy good. That sleep expert guy at Mattress Firm matched me with my perfect mattress.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Lopez.
So George Lopez is pretending to be this actor from the movie Scarface. So this is what we mean by impersonation.
Help! I live. It was a flesh wound, man, superficial. Stuff like that.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there because he does not use appropriate language in this impersonation. Okay. So I shared this with the group on last week. So let us continue. And of course, because I'm trying to work multiple screens, it's not going to share. All right, so we're going to do a new share. Here we go. All right, so let's go back to our story. There we go. Said, no, that's too much. But I do need some new running shoes. And I've heard that the New York Nike Town store is pretty cool. How's that for excitement? Sounds fine. I called the store to check their hours. The place is open until 7. And we decide there's enough time for each of us to practice for an hour before we go. So we do, because we're both such insanely responsible young musicians. Then it's a subway ride down to Columbus Circle. I love to watch people in New York, but if you make eye contact with the wrong person, it can get scary. Like the woman who was singing her own opera on a bus one afternoon. I was new in town, and I smiled and nodded at her. And suddenly the lady stands up and points and begins singing at the top of her lungs about me. This child of deadly Zeus, she brings ruin and destruction up down upon our heads. Shun her, feel her evil eye, for as she scolds her soul to the blooded moon. Her performance ran more than 30 blocks. Okay, so in Georgia, has anyone ever rode MARTA before? The MARTA train before? Anyone? Have you ever rode MARTA bus before?
Mhm.
Yes? Okay. So I've rode the train a couple of times. So in this part of the story, Gwen is explaining how she was on the subway in New York, which is very similar to MARTA in Georgia. So if you've ever rode on a public transportation like a bus or a subway, sometimes there are very interesting people on those modes of transportation. So she is describing a time how this woman was on this bus singing really loud. And so when she looked at the woman then started singing about her. So it caused Gwen to feel very embarrassed. Okay, so she is describing how when you're on the subway or on the bus or public transportation, you have to be careful not to make eye contact with the people around. Okay. And all the time, my face was beet red because everyone was looking at me. And when I got off, the lady rushed to the back of the bus and kept singing at me out the window. Stuff like that can make a deep impression on a young newcomer in a big city. So now I do my people watching in quick glances. And in our subway car, I don't spot anyone who grabs my imagination. In fact, Robert and I may be the most interesting people around at the moment. Everybody else is probably watching us. And as I think this, I notice that I'm enjoying sitting next to Robert. And I realize that when people see us sitting like this, they might think we're together, that he's my boyfriend. And suddenly I feel like Lizzie in Pride and Justice. And Robert is Mr. Dancy. And I'm writing Robert into my story, imagining what the two of us would look like as a couple. The thought makes me blush, and I punish myself. To punish myself, I say, so tell me about your girlfriend. You say her name is Alicia? He nods and gets this smile on his face, a sweet one I haven't seen yet. Right, Alicia. Well, she's real smart, and she's a great writer. And we like reading the same kind of books. We listen to lots of music, and she's heard me play my trumpet more than anyone else on the planet. And I'm not kidding. She is not afraid of anything. Makes me feel like a wimp. The train stops at 72nd Street, and our conversation is interrupted by the noise of 20 people getting off and 30 others getting on. When we're moving again, I say, do you have a picture of her? He shakes his head. Not even one. I know that sounds strange, but she's never seen me at work, what I look like. So I keep her pictures in my head like she does. I mean, she's really pretty and everything. It's just not why I like her. Okay. So Robert and Gwen are on the subway, and Gwen asks Robert about Alicia because before now, he has never really talked about his girlfriend. So he is describing his girlfriend to Gwen. Now remember, his girlfriend Alicia is blind. Alicia cannot see with her eyes. So she's never actually seen Robert. So when Gwen asks Robert if he has a picture of her, he says no. And he says no because she has never seen him. She just knows how he describes himself, or how if she touched his face, how his face feels. So he tries to remember Alicia in that same way, okay, from memory, right? I like that sink. I let that sink in, and now I'm really curious. Does it bother you sometimes, like that you can't go see a movie together and do other stuff? He shakes his head. We watch DVDs all the time. I describe what's going on right while it's happening. I'm genius at it. So I get to watch the movie, and I also get to watch her face as I tell her about it. It's the best. And if you've ever been the guide for a blind person who's riding a bike in front of you, it's an experience. I mean, we only do that at night in this museum parking lot. It's huge and flat, and all I have to do is keep her from hitting the light poles. And we work out at a gym together, and we've been camping and kayaking. Even okay, I'm going to pause it right here. So right here in the story, I want you to kind of reread what he says. He says that he he said at night he takes her riding a bike. So now remember, Alicia can't see, but he takes her bike riding at night in an empty parking lot. So he's kind of, as she's pedaling and riding the bike, he's probably telling her which way to go. But he has to keep in mind that there are light poles he has to make sure she doesn't run into as she's riding a bike. So can you imagine not being able to see trying to ride a bike? That would be very hard, right?
Yes.
And probably dangerous too. Skiing on some little hills in Wisconsin. So it's not like we don't do stuff. It's just different. That's all. I can only imagine how different it would be. Like learning to see the world all over again. Or maybe learning how to play the violin in the dark. We get off at 59th Street Station at the bottom of Central Park, walk down Broadway to 57th Street, and then go east. He wants to go to the big bookstore on the corner, and normally, so would I, but I'm watching the time. I really do want to get back to the practice room, so I suggest that we save the pleasure for some other trip. A block later, I've got a surprise for him, but he sees it before I can tell him. Hey, look, Carnegie Hall. Everybody's played there, even Miles Davis. And watching Robert's face, I remember the first time I saw the place, all lit up at night, with banners announcing the performance of Ya Ya Ma. At this moment, it looks more like a drab hotel than the world's most famous concert hall. A glass and metal marquee reaches out over the sidewalk, and if the fancy bronze poster frames weren't hanging on either side of the doorways, it would be easy to walk right past the place. My teacher told me that his namesake, Porter Eachley Kavatsky was a conductor at the very first concert here in 1891. And when I told my uncle Belden that I'd actually attended a performance at Carnegie Hall, he said, "So, what is it like? Excuse me. So, is it like the Grand Ole Opry?" And I told him, yes, in a way, I guess. So here is a picture of Carnegie Hall. Let's see. Here's a picture of Carnegie Hall. So as they are walking up the street, they come to this building. Okay, can y'all see the picture?
Yes, I see.
Okay, so this is Carnegie Hall. It is a famous building in New York City where a lot of different artists and musicians come to play. So on the inside, it looks like this. Isn't that beautiful? So these are all like seats. And so if you're sitting up high, it looks like this. Looks like that. This is what the inside of it looks like. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So it looks like that. You would think it was an old building, but it's not. And here you have the orchestra playing. And then you may have some plays going on. So here are the people sitting. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, that's nice.
It is nice. All right, so I just wanted to show you some pictures of Carnegie Hall. Let's slide this back over here, and there we go. We hike east and across Fifth Avenue. The Nike store is right there. And unlike Carnegie Hall, there's no way to miss it. The facade is most likely polished granite, and there's this huge arch window that goes up and up. It's not your everyday shoe store at the mall, which is the full extent of my relationship with footwear. This place is more like an athletics theme park or a high-tech geek temple that specializes in foot worship. We wander around for almost an hour, just gawking at the plastic and the polished metal and the wall-sized graphics of the sport gods, plus all the multimedia displays, 5 floors of it. Then when Robert finally picks out a pair of ridiculously expensive shoes, after he pays, we start to head for the exit on the far side of the atrium. Suddenly, Robert stops, so I stop too. He's looking at something, and I turn my head to see, but he steps around in front of me. No, don't stare. What? Stare at what? Because from the look on his face, I'm thinking he's got to be Michael Jordan himself, or maybe a vampire. He's talking to me in a rushed whisper. Okay, look at the tile wall on the left of the Tiger Woods poster. No, don't point. And I try not to stare. Just take a quick look at the wall and tell me what you see, because I think I see something there. So I look, and there is something. I say, there's sort of a shadow, except it's not very dark. It's kind of blurry, but it's a man's shadow. He nods, agreeing. Okay. And do you see how his shadow's moving? Yeah. The guy keeps turning his head. I mean, the shadow. It's blurry, but it looks like he's got a lot of hair and a beard. Okay. Robert says, that's the shadow. Okay. So what is happening is they're in the Nike shoe store. So they are in a shoe store. And as they are walking around in the shoe store, Robert notices something. Okay. So he notices an image of a shadow. So do y'all see this picture of this guy or boy? And if you notice, we have a shadow, but there is no person. And usually a shadow is a reflection of something. In this case, there is a shadow, but no body, no person. Does that make sense? It's weird. And it's
Yeah.
supposed to be like that. So what you would normally see when you see a shadow would normally, let me go back because that's not a good picture. A shadow would normally look like this. You would have the person and then a shadow. Let's see if I can find another picture.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good one. So normally you would have the person standing there, and depending on the light or the sun, then you would have a shadow. But in this case, there's a shadow, but no person.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Yes, it is scary. So let's see what happens. All right, hold on. Let me move this back just in case I need to find another picture. Okay, we're going to keep reading.
Now locate the person who's making the shadow. I look around trying to be casual about it, but the hair and the beard in the shadow, I'm thinking is a spot, thinking to spot a hippie or maybe some homeless guy with dreadlocks.
So Robert tells her, okay, you see the shadow. Now look for the person. So now Gwen is looking around the store because in the shadow, the man has a beard. Okay, so he has hair on his face. Okay, so it says the guy keeps turning his head. It's blurry, but it looks like he's got a lot of hair. So he's got a lot of hair on his head and he has a beard. So now she's looking around the store to see if she can find someone with a lot of hair and a beard.
There's an older woman with an umbrella and a canvas shopping bag and a young mom with a baby in a stroller. I see 2 teenage girls wearing black leather jackets and a 10 or 12 college guys, all with short hair, and most of them all tall. Looks like a whole basketball team, and lots of other people, but no long-haired, bearded guys. Not near, not far, not on the first or the second floor, not anywhere. And I turn to glance at the guy's shape, and suddenly the shadow wiggles, and it's gone, just gone. The hairs on the back of my neck tingle, and I say, "What? What was that?" Robert whispers, "Probably nothing. Let's go." But I can tell he's spooked. And that feeling I've had that Robert is full of surprises, it's just not a feeling anymore. And as we rush out the store, I'm wondering if it's really a good idea to invite him to stay at Grandpa's house with me. We're out on the street, and I have to trot to keep up with him. And when we cross the Avenue of the Americas, I say, "Hey, can you slow down?" I just looked, and the shadow isn't chasing us.
Okay, so Robert saw the shadow. Gwen saw the shadow. Now Gwen is having second thoughts. She's like, maybe I shouldn't have this boy stay with me because I think he's a little crazy. But she sees the shadow, okay? But she doesn't see anyone in the store matching the shape of the shadow. So they quickly leave out of the store. The shadow moves and disappears. So they quickly leave the store, okay?
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost. So you think it's a ghost, Miss Lou? Oh my gosh. You guys have got to read the first book. The first book will explain a lot about the second book. Okay. So they see this shadow. So Robert hurries up and gets out that store. He's walking so fast that Gwen is out of breath. And she's like, wait, hold up, slow down. So let's see what happens from this point on, okay?
He snaps, "Not funny." He's really upset. So I say, "Sorry. I mean, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what that was about." Still walking fast, still snapping, he says, "That's right. You don't know. So tell me, But he doesn't say anything and he doesn't slow down. When we get to Carnegie Hall, I say, I have to catch my breath. And I find a place under the marquee that's not covered with penguin droppings. And I sit on the low step with my back against the glass on the second doorway. In the shade, it feels 10 degrees cooler. And even though I'm overheated, I shiver. Robert sits beside me and he's breathing hard too. After a minute or so, he says, remember how you asked if I could keep a secret? I nod and he says, so how about you? Can you keep one? Yes, I can. I will.
Okay. So Robert is about to tell her a secret. Okay. So remember, Gwen told Robert a secret about her grandfather. So now Robert is about to tell Gwen a secret. What do you think the secret is going to be about? And Miss Luna, you cannot answer. What do you think Robert is going to tell Gwen? And it's okay.
Maybe has another talenting.
Say that again, Miss Lou.
Maybe has an other talenting. Talenting?
Okay. All right. Anyone else? What do you think Robert is going to tell Gwen? Would anyone else like to guess? Okay, let's keep reading. Let's see if you're right, Miss Lou.
Nods, but he doesn't say anything. And I get ready because I have no idea what's coming. He's watching the traffic, so I'm looking at one side of his face and he's thinking hard. Finally, he says, okay, what would you say if I told you that 2 years ago I turned invisible? I want to laugh, but looking at his face, I know not to. Invisible? You mean for real? Like no one could see you? He nods, still looking at the cars and taxis going by. Right. No one could see me for almost a month because my body stopped reflecting light. For real. What would you say if I told you that? Is that what you're telling me? Just answer my question. What would you say if I told you that?
Okay. Did we hear the secret?
Yeah.
Okay. So Robert tells Gwen that he was invisible. Okay. He tells her that he was invisible 2 years ago. He was invisible for a month. Yes. Okay. So Robert was invisible, meaning you could not see his body. You only saw, and I don't even remember if you saw his shadow then. I don't remember off the top of my head if you could see his shadow, but he was invisible for a whole month. So that's why when they were in the store, he recognized the shadow because that was once him. His mom couldn't see him. His father couldn't see him. Alicia, when she first met him, she didn't know he was invisible because she couldn't see him, but he was invisible. Okay. So here we have Gwen who is looking at him like, that can't be true. No one has ever been invisible. And he is explaining to her how his body could not reflect light. Okay. So basically, Robert is saying he is like this man here. You can't see his body. If he had on clothes or shoes, you could see the outline of it, but you would not know it's him.
Okay. And there's a video clip I just thought of. I'm going to see if I can pull it up to give you a visual of what he looked like. Okay. So we're going to keep reading. Well, if I believed you, or if I just wanted to go along with the story, I'd say, so how did this happen? He nods and says, if you ask me that, I'd say it was because of scientific principle, excuse me. It was because of scientific principles, spectroscopic and anomalies, particle light theory, physics, stuff I don't completely understand, but it really happened. And some other people saw it happen the same way I did. A whole group of very smart, very normal people. It happened to me, but they saw it too. So it wasn't my imagination. And we can't all be crazy. That's what I'd say back to you if you went along with the first part. About becoming invisible, I say, right. Of course, I'm not going along with the first part because it's got to be some kind of a joke, but I'm nodding anyway. I feel like I've edged my way out into a frozen pond and the ice isn't thick enough, so I want to stop. But it's not safe to stand there either. So I take another step because I have to. And I say, so if we got this far, I guess my next question would be, who are these other people? The ones who know for sure that this has really happened to you. Robert glances at my face, then looks beyond me, scanning the flow of people walking toward us. And I see a tiny flicker of fear in his eyes. There and gone. Then he turns back to watching the cars. He smiles to himself and says, that's the right question. Who else knows? And to answer you, I'd say there's my mom, who teaches literature at the University of Chicago. There's my dad, who's a physicist at Fairman National Lab. There's Alicia's mom, a serious college-educated American citizen. And there's Alicia's dad, also a physicist and a professor at U of C. And there's Alicia, and now you. He looks at me, and I'm trying to keep my face still, trying not to let my thinking show. But he sees me confused, and he probably sees I'm also a little scared, and I am. Because really, I don't know this boy. And for all I know, he's got serious problems. He turns back and stares at the buildings across the street. It's okay if you don't believe me, but keep all that secret anyway, because it's not a story, and there's more. While we were working out the problem 2 years ago, I found someone else, another person it happened to, only one. But it was important because that proved it didn't only happen to me. And that's what I think we saw back there at the Nike store, another one. And suddenly my heart's beating so fast, it's hard to breathe. And my mind is stuttering in itself. No, no way. Because I don't know what to think. Because I really did see it, that shadow, a faint, wavy shadow of a guy with long hair, turning his head, looking around there in the store, up against the wall. I saw it. His shadow was there, but there wasn't a body to match it. And then the shadow disappeared, just vanished. I saw it. Robert stands and brushes off his pants. Ready? And he reaches down to help me. And when I look up into his face and take his hand, that's when I start to believe. This person pulling me to my feet is not a liar. And he's not weird, not at all. And I'm not afraid of him or of what he's saying, because why would he make up a story like that? And I did see it, that shadow. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it. Riding the subway home, he answers my questions. And I have a lot of them, because once I accept all of his story is even a tiny bit possible, I want to know everything, all the details, and he tells me everything, except he doesn't tell me what triggered the phenomena. That's what he calls it, the phenomena. And you went out in public too? He nods, and I say, but like, You couldn't wear clothes, right? He nods again, blushing now. Yep, naked as a Greek statue. Takes some getting used to. He tells me how he stood out in front of his high school watching the kids out after school and how he took a long cab ride with Alicia naked. As I listen, I'm trying to find a reason to dismiss the whole thing as crazy, but the story's tight. There's nothing inconsistent, nothing off key, because it's like when I begin to play my violin. If one string is even a little out of tune, it can't be hidden. And I hear Robert's voice and I see his eyes. There's not a single false note. Sitting on the noisy, swaying train, I began stringing with the idea that someone could be hidden like that. I look around at all the people and I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to be invisible for a month. Even if I couldn't completely believe it happened, I believe that Roberts believed it did. I'm sure of that much. And then I have this sudden mind snap. And I know what Robert didn't tell me the other night in my practice room about how he got over being shy. He had this experience 2 years ago, and it was like disappearing, shutting off the lights. And even though I don't know what to believe, I'm also sure I really saw that shadow man, or at least something that looked like a man's shadow. And I wonder where that guy is right now. If he's real, that is. If I really saw what I think I saw, or if I really saw what Robert thinks I saw. And I still look at Robert and I try to imagine what effects being invisible might have had on him. If it happened, because an experience like that would have to leave some marks if it happened. And then I still look at myself, at my reflection in the window on the other side of the subway. And I wonder what the experience of just knowing about this stuff is going to have on me. Even if it's only knowing that Robert believes it happened, because I can already feel a change in the way I look at people and at myself. And it's also changed the way I look at Robert. And not just because of the phenomenon. I'm seeing him differently because of the way he's taking me into his confidence. That look of some courage. After the thing in the Nike store, he could have just laughed it off, or he could have just clammed up. But he chose to tell me. He's trusting me. And I don't want that to stop because I want to keep being friends with Robert. I admit that to myself. I really like him. Not necessarily in a romantic way, or even a romantic way. I like him in a classical way. So here I am. My grandfather is a missing person. The most important auditions of my life began the day after tomorrow. And I'm sitting on the subway next to a boy named Robert, who has become my current best friend and who is easily the most interesting person I've met in years. He's a great musician. He's an original thinker. He's a fearless problem solver. And oh yes, he's saying that what I saw in the Nike store this afternoon was an invisible man. And what makes Robert think that? Because he was invisible himself for a month or so, a few years back. That's what he's telling me. And even though I've only known Robert for 2 days, I believe him. And I believe him because I can see that if I'm going to stay friends with him, then I need to accept that what he's told me is true. I accept it, that it happened the way he says it did. And I'm willing to do that. I want to believe him because that's sort of like this girl at my junior high, Belinda, who says she wanted to tell me a secret. It was at her house one afternoon, and she made me swear on the Bible that I wouldn't tell. And then she told me that she'd been abducted by aliens. And either it really happened to her or else she's a crazy liar because her story was pretty amazing. So Belinda took a risk and she told me. And after I listened to her story, I decided I'll just go along with her because, well, why not? Why call someone a liar and lose a friend over something that's impossible to prove or disprove? Especially when it'll never have anything to do with my own life, because this girl wasn't crazy. And she never lied about anything else. And that's sort of how it is with Robert's story. I can accept it because I want to stay friends with Robert. And it won't cost me anything to accept it because it's just a story, his story. It's just something that he says happened to him. And he shared it with me, but it's not part of my story. It's his story, not mine. Except I never saw Belinda's aliens. And I did see that shadow in the Nike store. So that's different. We get off at 110th Street and start walking home on Sunday afternoon. And I feel like my world is changing again. And there's nothing subtle about it. Everything has shifted. Like when a symphony suddenly modulates to a different key. And I wonder how many times the world can change in 1 week. I'm beginning to think that it's a huge number. All right, so we're going to stop here, but I want to show you a clip. And this is an old movie. Have you ever heard of the movie Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby? It was a movie that played in 1990. So when I think of Robert being invisible, or this man in the Nike store who is invisible, this movie is what I think about. So in this movie, Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby, he gets into an accident and runs off of a bridge and he dies. But he comes back as a ghost, okay? But his children can see him. So this is what I think when I think of this guy in this store. Let's see.
Bill Cosby's got good news and bad news. Stop the cab! The bad news is...
What's wrong?
The good news is he's...
A big sissy. A host. A ghost? He's a ghost!
Do you know how weird that's gonna make me look? Oh, there goes Diane, you know, Casper's daughter.
Everything's perfectly normal.
Bill Cosby. Ghost Dad. Rated PG.
So you see how he was walking up the hallway, and I know it was quick. He was walking up the hallway, and he had on the hat and the jacket, but you couldn't see his body. That's how Robert was when he was invisible. So when he put on clothes, you could see the clothes, but you couldn't see where his body was. So it was almost like a ghost walking around and you saw clothes moving, but you didn't see a person. Okay. So we're going to stop there for tonight. So now our story has gotten a little more interesting. Gwen, who is 17, is by herself in New York City. Grandpa is missing. She meets a boy named Robert, and now she sees an invisible person and finds out that Robert was also invisible. So our story has had a lot of different things happen, okay? So we'll stop there for tonight because it is 8 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we'll start with chapter 10, and we'll try to do 10, 11, and 12.